Goedenavond allemaal, hier zijn we weer. Aflevering blablabla. Geen idee waar we zitten. Vanavond kan ik het niet alleen aan, dus ik heb hulp gevraagd en ik ga hem onmiddellijk erbij halen. Vanavond word ik bijgestaan door onze Bert. Goedenavond Bert.
Goedenavond Gunther. En eerst en vooral, dankjewel om in deze sessie uit te nodigen. Hè.
Ja, het is dat. Nu Bert, we hebben het er eigenlijk al een beetje over gehad gedurende onze uitzending, een paar maand geleden ondertussen al, over andere onafhankelijke bottelaren, te zeggen van ik kijk wel een beetje op naar sommigen. En de gast van vanavond is toen letterlijk vernoemd, Dave. Dus ik kon niet weerstaan en natuurlijk moesten we vragen van Bert, heb je zin om erbij te komen? En het antwoord was eigenlijk wel heel vlot, hè?
Ja, ik heb niet getwijfeld. Ik dacht, ik ga die opportuniteit nemen om eens met Dave kennis te maken, babbels te houden en entertainment.
Nu, er waren wat kleine probleempjes. Er was een beetje stress bij u, maar het is allemaal in orde gekomen, je zei er. We hebben ook al even een klein babbel gehad met Dave, dus het gaat volledig goed komen. Dus ik welkom bij deze iedereen vanavond en we gaan hem onmiddellijk erbij roepen. Hallo Dave.
Hello there. How are you?
I'm fine.
Cheers.
Oh,
you
dram? You have your dram.
Good evening, Dave.
You have a whiskey ready? Good evening. Good evening. Good evening.
Drinking.
I've just got a little one here because I've got a few behind me to get through. I thought I'll go through the series. Thank you for having me.
No. I'm not having a drink tonight because my stomach isn't that well and I don't want to be having more troubles later on, if you know what I mean.
Yes, sir.
Dave, first of all, the both of us mentioned it when we saw your room. What a great room you're in.
Yeah, well, this was my son's bedroom many years ago. He moved out about 3 years ago now, I guess. And I needed an office, especially when you spend working from home and then working on the road. It's not so bad if it's just occasionally. So working from the kitchen table or the dining room table is okay for a little while. But when it comes to lockdown, we haven't moved since the middle of March, and I needed somewhere permanent. So I'm fortunate that I have a proper desk here and a computer set up. And this is the boutique office. So do lots of different things from here. So everything you can see in here, hey Mark, everything you can see in here is boutique whiskey, apart from all the books, and they're mine because I collect lots and lots of whiskey books.
Mm-hmm.
And Dave, are you also responsible for the colorful artwork? Because what if that boutique whiskey company would have chosen for black labels? That would have been not so colorful. That room.
I have nothing to do with to be honest, I've had nothing to do with the labels in the past. At the moment, I am sitting on part of the team that do work on the label briefs, but all of our labels are created or realized by one artist. Her name is Emily Chappell. She's a freelance illustrator based up in Glasgow, and she has done every one of our labels since the beginning. So she's a very, very busy lady at the moment because I think we just introduced 5 new labels on our recent launch, and we've got at least another 6 coming out next week. Brand new labels.
How does it work? You say, for example, this one. I know it's my favorite up till now.
The Altmore label. Now, when we first released an Altmore, there was no story about Altmore. There was nothing about Altmore because it had never been released as a single malt. Altmore came online in 2014 when the last great malts and all this lovely foggy moss story came along. The marketing team created this image of Altmore for the brand, but we'd already decided there was nothing interesting to say about Altmore, so we thought we'd have a bit of fun and have the dinosaur, the tanker ship, the container ship, the oil rig, and the great white shark all sort of colluding together to create an enormous disaster. So that was just a little bit of fun.
I think if we would ask our people on the show here tonight who has tasted more than 5 Altmores, I think not a lot of people will raise their hands. Yeah.
No, it wasn't a whiskey you saw. I mean, there was a Flora and Fauna a long time ago, wasn't there? Altmore Flora and Fauna, but not when Bacardi bought the distilleries. It just went straight into making whiskey for blends, and so what we were buying was the stock from the brokers, the fillings, and releasing it as under our own label, much before Bacardi decided to bring the brand, or Stephen Marshall decided to bring the brand to fruition, basically.
And how did it all start? Because Sympathieke Whiskey Company, you obviously started with the whiskey part, but how did it start?
Well, basically, the directors of Master of Malt, a group of whiskey friends, decided they wanted an independent bottling company, and they couldn't do it under their own Master of Malt. And so they needed a brand. And so they, the directors from Master of Malt formed that boutique whiskey company in September 2012. So we've just celebrated our 8th birthday. And released their first 4 expressions. They actually tried them out at Maltstock in 2012, September 2012. Tried them out with Maltstock, and everybody wanted to know. So, just like most whiskey geeks, want to know absolutely everything about the whiskies, and we didn't want to say everything. We want to be about the whiskey, the liquid itself. You don't need to know everything. You just need to know it tastes great. In fact, when we first released whiskies, we never even put an age statement on, but they were single malts, because what we wanted to do was we wanted to be able to, buy some I think the first Macallan that we released. So we launched the brand with a Macallan, an Ardbeg, a Port Ellen, and a Cappadonic. So they were the 4 labels that we started. 2 closed distilleries and 2 top-end sort of collectible Macallan, Ardbeg, what everybody rants and raves about. And we had some really lovely old Macallan, but we also had some really young Macallan that when we put the 2 together, it absolutely just shone. And so we didn't really want it. It would destroy that. Hello, Paul. It would destroy that image of, this was I don't know what it was. Maybe it's a 5-year-old Macallan, but actually there was a lot older liquid in it. So we didn't want to give that sort of information. We wanted it to be about the liquid. Now things have changed, and we always put an age statement on the whiskies nowadays. I think we did that from April 2015, 16. We never did to begin. The early batches never did.
Okay, yeah. But at this point, you started out with the malt, Masters of Malt. But at this point, you're with the 2 of you. Are you with?
Well, they were marketed through Master of Malt. There was no branding. I wasn't there. I remember the first whiskey show I saw them at was at Whisky Live London 2013, and I was actually helping Chip Tate with Balcones at that time. I think I was just helping myself to his whiskey more than I was just pretending to be mini Chip, small beard at the time, and letting Chip do his things, but talking about Balcones whiskey. And I remember them being there, and they had a fabulous Klein Leash at that time. I started working with them in 2016, 4 years ago, at part-time.
At part-time, because your main job was mechanical engineering?
Yeah, I've been an engineer all of my working life. I started off as a shipbuilder a long time ago, as an apprentice shipbuilder, building ships on the south coast of warships. I then went to work in the Far East building sailing yachts for 7 years. So I built super yachts in the Far East for 7 years, 40-meter, $6.5, $7, $8 million yachts at the time. And then came back to the UK in 98 and then worked for a marine engineering company doing yacht steering. And whiskey's a fairly new hobby for me. I came from a marine background, so we drank rum, but not to drink rum to have any knowledge behind it. It was about drinking rum to fall over, effectively.
To be a pirate, a bit.
Just drinking rum to fall over. Yeah, it was party rum. Yeah, boat builders do that sort of thing. Sailors definitely. A lot of the sailing races that I used to do.
But like, look at me, I'm a pirate.
Well, no, I think they were sponsored by, a lot of the big brands was, Mount Gay Rum was sort of the big sponsor of a lot of the yachting races in the 90s, 80s, 90s, and onwards. But I got introduced to whiskey by my sales manager at the time, and a pirate. Yeah, I've got the tricorn somewhere, Shelton. I was introduced to whiskey by my sales manager when I was working in heavy engineering. So after the sort of the financial crash of 2008, the marine industry collapsed effectively. The marine industry collapsed, and boat building definitely stopped by a lot of companies. So I ended up going back into heavy engineering and running a little gear shop, making custom gears, prototype gears for all sorts of industry. It's motor racing, medical, pneumatic. And my sales manager, he is a whiskey connoisseur and just a small club. And likes his single malts and his single cask, single malts and independent bottlers. And he introduced me to a whiskey, and I took one sip of it and thought, what am I drinking this? This is just delicious. I need to know more about this. And went out and bought my first whiskey after that. And then I started writing about the whiskies that I was going to what I was buying. I thought I'd make. I read Malt Maniac's blog, Johann's blog about keeping a log, and I thought I need to do this. And I'm a geek, an engineer. Spreadsheets is my motto. If in doubt, build a spreadsheet. That is definitely a motto. I use spreadsheets for everything.
Dave, I think it was around 2000. I'm not sure. 2000, 2001. Malt Maniacs were indeed already there, and I was starting reading this, and I think Johannes' page was a lot of information for all the whiskey lovers. And I remember that I sent him an email because you could apply for Malt Maniac, and I sent him an email stating that I'm going to work on the requirements that we need to have at least tasted 30 different whiskeys to become a Malt Maniac. And things have changed since then. I never became a Malt Maniac, but I applied for one when I had my gram.
I that was one of the inspirations. Johann's blog was one of the inspirations to begin with. About starting a whiskey journey, because I was just hungry for information, because it's just a category that taking drink seriously. Really, it was just recreational, but there was so much history behind it that I wanted to know more. I decided I was going to buy one bottle of whiskey every month, and I was going to write about it. And by the end of that first year, I had ended up with something like 33 bottles. Mm-hmm. So I definitely met my target of one per month. And then my brother, I was writing about it on Facebook just for my family. And my brother said, you should turn this into a blog. And I said, well, how do I do that? And so he helped me create the blog back in December 2011. And when we launched it over that Christmas, Whiskey Discovery. And it really sort of shot off from there. And then we started going to whiskey festivals, and my daughter joined me. And then we started working whiskey festivals in 2013 was the first whiskey festival we ever worked.
Wow. So it went very quick for you.
It went really rapid. Yeah. We say worked for the whiskey festivals. Basically, we just volunteered. We just turned up for everything. But basically, I called Chip up and said, do you need a hand? Do you want me to meet you at the airport? I'll pick you up. If you want, coming into London, you might not know your way around. I can help you out. And he said, no, you don't need to do that, Dave. I've got a PR company sorted out. But yeah, I'd love to have you on the stand. So yeah, I mean, really, that's where it all started. Gave me that first break. And then we decided we loved being on that side of the counter just as much as we did on the other side. And we started a whiskey club. We used to do tastings, my daughter and I. I would buy the whiskies, collect them, and I think, oh, they go together good. Let's do a tasting. We'd rent a hotel, a bar, room, sell tickets, just to cover the costs, pay the, do the food and the whiskies, and it just grew from there basically.
How old was your daughter at that moment? Don't say 12. Don't say 12, please.
No. My eldest daughter is how old is she now? She's 36 now. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, my eldest daughter's 36 now. So this would have been 6 years ago. She would have been 30. Yeah, late 20s, early. Late 20s, early. Late 20s. I think she was when we started doing stuff together. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, my son now is 16 years old. He can't believe it, but I'm saying it. I know every bottle I have in my closet. I know it by name. I know it by number. So look out.
Is she still involved with the boutique Y, or is she still involved in whiskey in general?
Yeah, well, when we first started working for Maverick Drinks, who were the distributor for boutique whiskey, they also distributors for Balcones, Few Spirits, Smooth Ambler. So we used to do the shows together where I would be doing boutique and she would do the American craft spirit. So we'd be traveling up and down the country all throughout 2016 doing the shows together. So she'd be looking after the American whiskies, I'd be looking after the boutique. And she has since, I think she got a job working for Gordon and MacPhail.
Okay.
As sales. So she's been working with Gordon and MacPhail up since nearly 3 years, 2.5, nearly 3 years, as a brand ambassador stroke sales. Her forte has been in sales. Basically, she's been traveling around the south of England selling. Yeah. So
she will be around in the whiskey scene for forever.
I hope she will be in the whiskey scene for a long time to come. I mean, difficult times at the moment.
Yeah.
And for lots of people in the industry, every day there's news of other people losing their jobs over here because there's nothing happening, which is painful.
Is it have an impact on you and the company?
It has had an impact on the company, absolutely, because on trade has sort of disappeared over here as a lot of the bars have had to close or very, very restricted. Fortunately, boutique whiskey hasn't actually made, there's a few niche bars that have, Milroy's, for example, in London, they have absolutely everything they could have of boutique in their new site there. But yeah, there's very few bars that have a good range of, but there are a few. It's not like we're widespread. Most of our sales has come through customers, whiskey enthusiasts who drink and buy bottles from the shops. Yeah.
Okay. One of the things, and it's a completely different question, but all your bottles, of most of your bottles, are 50 centiliters.
Yeah.
And I was mentioning before the show started, and I had to get used to it. But why 50 centiliters?
Well, when we first started, some of our batches were so small. Under 100 bottles, because as being an independent bottler is an expensive business.
Mm-hmm.
So you're buying whiskey, and the price of whiskey just seems to be skyrocketing at the moment. And certainly when you're buying casks, and certainly when we were first buying casks, and as it's a cash heavy business, we weren't always buying whole casks to ourselves. We might be sharing a cask with some other independent bottler. And so the batch sizes, we'd do what we want to do. They would do what they want to do. But the batch sizes would be very small. So we decided that a 50 cl bottle would be the way to go. So we could get it in a few more bottles.
Yeah.
It'd also allow us to bring the price down to a level that would be more affordable for everyone, because we're basically about, we're just passionate whiskey drinkers. And I don't know about you, but my cupboard downstairs, now everything you can see behind me is all work whiskey. Mm-hmm. There is there's a couple of my bottles in here. I think my World Whiskey Blend is here. That's mine. But everything that I own is downstairs in another in my living room, and so that's. And I don't know about you, but my cabinet is full of mostly 70 cl bottles with all about that much in the bottom.
Yeah.
So why do I leave that last? I don't know. 100 ml, 200 ml in the bottom. Why do you leave that just for that? Yeah, because you've opened a new one. So yeah, I think that was another reason, is because nearly every whiskey enthusiast has those loads of bottles where there's all that sort of much left in the bottle.
Yeah, but in the end, it will be the same. 50 centiliters with that much in the bottle. It feels the same.
No, 50 cl, you open a bottle of that with a couple of friends, it disappears pretty quickly. You can sit there and drink 50 cl with a few friends quite easy, and that was good.
And you mentioned it yourself. You can buy them cheaper, because the Altmar 20 years old, it's in Belgium available for more or less 57 euros. So it's for a 20-year-old Altmar, it's fairly cheap.
20-year-old Altmar is you try and find some 20-year-old Altmar from a distillery label. It's I mean, we had some really old Altmars, and I had the team from Bacardi come up to me in China, in Shanghai, at the Whisky Festival, and they wanted to taste this old Altmar that we had there, because it was older whiskey than they could get hold of. Because nearly all of the Altmar was casked young, was either sold off as fillings to the blending companies or used in their own blends. And so when they had the brand to launch, they didn't have any old stock. They had been building that up since 2014, trying to build their old stocks back up.
And Dave, do you get good comments on your 50 centiliter bottles by your fans, by the industry? Do you think you have set a trend and that others will follow? No, there's always going to be people who don't like it, because they're used to 70 cl. But we switched from 75 to 70 not so long ago. It wasn't that long ago, because of EU rules. Wine's in 75. In America, it's 75 or 375. They won't recognize half liter. Actually, the 375s are really useful as well for a couple of mates get together, drink a bottle of whiskey on an evening, put the worlds to right. And I quite like, I get these little 20 cl samples, and they're absolutely, to have a little pack of big, not miniatures, but big samples, 20 cl. I mean, I think that's a much more interesting proposition. So I think fractionals are definitely here to stay. And 50 cl bottles for an enthusiast. We're about drinking whiskey and bringing new whiskey out all the time. We just bought 9 world whiskies out recently, whiskies from right around the globe. And why would you want? Challenge comes with a club with 30. Need 2 bottles. Absolutely, yeah. Well, you need 2 bottles with. If you want proper drams, you'll need more than 1 bottle anyway. Otherwise, you're shortchanging them. Only 28 measures in a standard bottle. As you mentioned, that the New World whiskies, what I like so much about that boutique whiskey company is that indeed you don't look to names of distilleries. You go all over the world. We have seen Paul John. Shilton is also here. We have seen Macmillan. I think Dutch.
We're big fans of Millstone. Yes.
Whoa, Bert, you're okay.
We've lost Bert at the moment.
Maybe a question. Yeah.
He's back.
Okay, and especially if you look to Millstone, is there a certain character in Millstone that you like, the heavily sherried ones or the peated ones, or?
We just love the whole philosophy that Patrick has about making whiskey, his long fermentations, his, it's absolute passion. There is great whiskey made right around the world. And that's one of my favorite parts of the job, is meeting distillers around the world at different whiskey festivals and then tasting some of their whiskeys and thinking, is this yours? Do you make this? This is fantastic. Do you know who we are? Would you like to do something with us? I mean, it's one of my favorite parts of the job is finding those little nuggets of wow, I didn't know you existed. But I knew Millstone from a long time ago, certainly from the earliest Drambuie and tasting the Dutch ryes, which are absolutely superb. Millstone rye. I mean, Patrick's just got a real passion about making whiskey. You know, those long fermentations, that playing with the yeast, those really fine cuts. So yes, he makes great whiskey, and that's what we're passionate about, is great whiskey. So yeah, I wanted to get some French whiskey because I think what Amoric been doing has been really interesting. You know, once Dr. Jim Swan went in there and just tweaked them a little bit, all of a sudden gave them purpose. And I love what they're doing now as becoming French. You know, they're not trying to make Scotch whiskey now, they're trying to make French whiskey. You know, they're trying to use local grains, local coopers, and trying to put that French style onto their single malt, which I think is cool.
Yeah, that brings us in the discussion of terroir in the whiskey. Yeah, so the terroir aspect, like also Waterford Distillery is bringing.
I think, you know, terroir. I'm not a huge fan of that expression myself. You know, I think it's a wine expression. I think sense of place is much more interesting to me, because when you taste those Islay whiskies that may have not been matured on Islay, but it certainly takes you to that distillery. When you drink that Kalila, because I've been there, it's going to take me straight to Kalila. It's going to you know, I'll taste the Lagavulin, it's going to take me to Lagavulin, because that, you know, every distillery has its own signature. That's why you have all these distilleries next to each other, but have very, very different tastes.
Do you have the same feeling with the distilleries abroad, India, Netherlands, for example? For example, Paul John.
Paul John. I think you recognised a Paul John. Does it take me to India? Not yet, because I want to be there. I have not been to the Paul John distillery, and I want to get there. Yeah.
Yes, India.
Hello there, Dave. I was like,
hey, buddy.
You better be careful what you say next.
you know, I love this, and I have put my bottle of 1906 downstairs.
I'm on my boutique whiskey as well, in my little teacup as usual.
So everybody's pouring in Paul John whiskey.
Oh wow!
Children or Dave, are you willing to trade this bottle for such that boutique whiskey company, Paul John? I need to get my hands on that one.
Is that the one?
I haven't got. I mean, yeah, I haven't got any. It's because I'm not doing shows. Because I'm not doing shows, I don't have any. You know, the stocks that I normally have. So everything behind me is just open stock from previous shows that I use for various tastings. If I'm visiting a customer or a client, and can go through some of the whiskeys. So, but I do get all the new stuff. So that's all of the 9. World whiskies sitting, and the ones behind me are these big ones around the back are the new whiskies that we're talking about next week, or launching next week.
This one is coming out.
The Rye series.
Yeah.
That's the Orthrusk. Yeah, that is our Halloween label. But we haven't got a new batch of that coming out next week, but we've got a new batch of
but the label is great.
Another zombie apocalypse, because we had nothing interesting to say about that distillery either, which I think is a travesty, because that distillery is so beautiful. I mean, it's a completely out of context distillery in the Speyside countryside. The Orthrusk distillery is like a cathedral. To me, it looks like a cathedral. As you come down that little road, you think, what the hell's that? Oh, wow, that's the Orthrusk distillery. Well, yeah, I mean, it's just, a modern distillery. We should have had like a Disney castle on the label, I think. I think we missed a trick. It should have been a Disney castle in the Speyside Valley. That would have been quite pretty.
Okay, so Chilton, I have to ask, what's the story of the label, of the Paul John label? Do you know?
Of the Paul John label on the boutique whiskey? Dave, I love the way Dave explains this.
No, I want to hear you say it.
Well, it's a picture of the at the distillery where you can see the chairman, Mr. Paul, in one corner over here, and the angels, the greedy angels, all in the corner. Except for Dave always says that there's one which you can really see, and you can figure out. I should have worn my shirt today.
Yeah, the greedy angels. They the Paul John Distillery Shilton always goes on about that 8 to 10% angels share, and we're saying angels share my ass. You're all putting the wings on and drinking it. They're all they're all queuing up for their angels share, and they put the wings on, and that allows them to sip out of the cask. See, once they've got the wings on, they become angels. And that's where that 8 to 10% is going, because as you know, their warehouses are all underground and in a little microclimate, and it's actually only probably about 1.5%. But just to get that 8 to 10, like that.
Dave, you can't mention this on a live session, Dave.
Oh, it's okay.
So yeah, it's just a little silly joke. But the whiskey is the whiskey is unique, I think, because there's no other distillery that I know of that regularly distills with 6-row barley. So it's completely different, which is why we love it.
And it strikes me in the Indian malt, so that you really find this taste of India, and that's always great in the bottles, that you have these nice herbs, spices. It's a passion in the bottle. It's fantastic what these guys are doing.
Yeah, absolutely. But there's great whiskey. I don't know about the taste of Taiwan from the Nantu that we've recently bottled, but I mean it comes from a tropical region, the Nantu distillery, in a very beautiful part of Taiwan. Apparently, I didn't actually get there, but when you taste that whiskey, it's just so light and tropical, and oh wow, this is something different. Absolutely beautiful. And then we recently bottled some whiskey from Seattle, Copperworks Distillery, and nobody's heard of them outside of the States because just a very, very small distillery, but they do a 21-day fermentation. So seven days at 21 degrees centigrade, and then 2 weeks at 5, sort of a resting ferment, and it's just so fruity. And they put their single malts into virgin oak, and just like many of these American craft distilleries, and I know from balconies about the amount of time they spent looking for the right wood. These guys, all these small American craft, are not using the run-of-the-mill bourbon casks. They're using small cooperages, people who really know their oak, know their wood, about yard aging it. So it's naturally seasoned rather than kiln dried. It's all natural seasoned wood. And as a boat builder, an ex-boat builder, I know all about seasoned hardwoods, because A, they bend, B, they don't dull your tools, and C, they don't rot. So there's natural dried wood is much better for life than kiln dried wood, and if it's better for life and shipbuilding, it's going to be better for whiskey, and it is, because all those natural oils stay within the woods, which makes flavor.
Yeah. We talk a lot about whiskey, but we can't forget, because there are a lot of rums available as well, and even a lot of gins.
I know very little about both of them. The gins, I know some of them that I love to drink. Occasionally need a little taste, but we have another boutique, Pete, who looks after the rum side. Every time I talk to Pete, I learn loads. We did 3 sessions at the Whisky Show recently, the big Whisky Show, the online sessions, and I invited Pete to come and talk to me about rum. We did 3 hours, over 3 hours, because we overran each time, and I learned so much about what did we learn about? We learned about blends. We learned about I've drunk them all now. But different countries that I'd never. Guyana. I didn't know anything about Guyana. I'd heard about Guyanan rum, but did I know anything about it? No. It was just fascinating. All the different stills.
After all those years drinking rum on a ship, you don't know anything about rum.
No. I never looked at it seriously in terms of what it was. It was about, getting to a level. It was a party drink. It wasn't, and the rum that we were drinking, certainly as boat builders in the Far East, with all the Australians, it really was pretty basic stuff. And we were drinking Bundaberg rum, which is, I think it's probably down here in terms of falling over juice, but it worked.
Yeah, it sounds great.
It did the job. It's same thing with us as well, Dave. I mean, drinking rum just to get drunk and party,
Yeah, exactly what boat builders do. Yeah.
What's your favorite whiskey from Taboutique? Why Taboutique up till now?
Oh, crikey, yeah. I mean, probably some of the older ones that we bottled that have been very good. The 52, 53-year-old Cars Bridges was absolutely superb. So single grain from the Carsbridge distillery, closed distillery, they were just, and the Girvans as well. The Girvans was superb. So that was all around 1964 Girvan. So that was absolutely stunning. If we're talking about single grain, there's so many. And whenever anyone asks me what is my favorite whiskey, I normally say it's usually the next one.
Yeah.
Because have I got to it yet? I don't know. But those distilleries that you don't see bottled very often are all some of my favorites. Glen Tockers, Glen Elgins. Just great whiskies.
Yeah.
Linkwoods. Oh, Linkwoods.
And it's always linked with the smell and the taste, or is it linked with the feeling?
I think Glen Elgin is you've got that worm tub element coming in, so you're expecting something a little heavier, but it's not. It's quite light, which is sort of unusual. Same with like Speyburn. Again, there's that. It comes across really quite light. Those Craigellachie, again, worm tub. I think I have a thing about worm tubs. A lot of the whiskies I love have a worm tub, and it is giving you that little bit of meatiness that comes through. But Glen Tockers is. I think the reason why I like a Glen Tockers is because you don't see them bottled by the distillery. So the people who bottle Glen Tockers, the first time I had Glen Tockers was from Gordon MacPhail in their distillery labels. And the very first one, oh God, this is delicious. Why do I like it? Because it's just delicious. And then every one you taste is good. You never get a bad Glen Tockers because it's always bottled by someone passionate as a small batch.
We did with Liquid Art. We bottled our first one was a Glen Elgin, and I think our fifth bottling was a Glen Tockers.
Because you pick, because you're taking the pick, and these independent bottlers, that's what they do. They look for those needles in haystacks, and good independent bottlers will be picking them out all the time. That's what we like to think what we're good at, because we're all passionate. Everyone in the company who's involved with buying and bottling and bringing to market loves whiskey, and so we really don't want to put something in a bottle that is not right. Okay,
Chilton, do you have a favorite? And you can't say Paul John.
Again, I mean, for me, it's as Dave said, it's the one which you're gonna try next. For me, it is the one which is in your glass right now. So for me, it's just so at the moment it is the Boutique whiskey Paul John, but I tend to like more of the peated style whiskies. If you look at the style of whiskies, so I like your Islay style whiskies from Islay. Or in other words, I've got one whiskey, one expression, favorite expression from every distillery. So I've got one from Kilmaman. There's one from Aaron. So there's one from every distillery which I think is the best for me.
I'm always wondering, Chilton, how many bottles do you have standing over there?
That is the Paul John shop window behind you.
Paul John, where's the other one?
There's the Paul John one over there, and everything else is hiding behind over here.
There's all the Belgian beer below it.
Yeah.
There's a Belgian beer.
I have a dram in the glass, of which I think, and it's not by coincidence, which I think that has not been bottled yet by that boutique whiskey company. And it's Scottish.
Oh, it's quite a few. Glendronach?
It's not Glendronach. Could be. Also looking for the colour, yeah.
Yeah, the colour. Yeah, Old Pulteney we haven't bottled. Oban and Ben Romac we haven't bottled.
I might be mistaken. And Edradauer.
Sorry?
Edradauer.
Edradauer. No, we've never bottled Edradauer as well. No, we bottled. There are 95. If we grab Ingvar's book, that's a 2007. I've got 21. Ingvar's book. There are 95 single malt distilleries of Scotland, with Kilhoman being the youngest, and Glentower being the oldest in there. And we've bottled 77 of those 95. So there are still 18 that we'd love to bottle.
And do you have?
I would love to bottle.
Do you have availability to all distilleries, or is there some?
It'd be very.
Some?
Yeah, it'd be very difficult to get hold of some of them. Yeah, we have got. I think we've got a couple in cask. So there will be some coming soon. Of some more. We've got at least 2 or 3 of those 18 that are missing. I think we can get some of the others, but we may not be able to name them. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I can't see us ever, and I've asked to get any Ben Romac, and yeah, it's highly unlikely. Even though I had my daughter working for Gordon and MacPhail, it hasn't helped. I don't think they make enough.
Every Christmas is like, honey, do you know what Daddy wants for Christmas?
Just one cask of Ben Romac, please. Yeah.
And going back to what you mentioned, that you are meeting this new small craft distilleries. Do you see a role there for that boutique whiskey company to bring these kind of craft distilleries to the broader public?
Yeah, that's what we're looking to do. I mean, we are. Like we said, we're passionate about sharing great whiskey. So the Copper Works that we released just a couple of months ago, a small distillery in Seattle. Will we get some more of it? Yes, I hope so, because they're just lovely people and the whiskey is superb. But you won't be able to find a bottle of Copper Works anywhere outside of the US and certain parts of the US as well, because the US is 50 different states and 50 different countries to do business with. So not every state has every. You can't just have that availability everywhere. So, I do hope that we can bring more small distilleries. And our next series, the Rye, there were some big names and there are a lot of small names that you may not have ever heard about, because they're just making great stuff. And so why not put a boutique label on and share it amongst, they might be very small batches, but just to have that. I think most of the batches that we've got coming up are all around 200-300 bottles, which is why we like those small bottles, because it just allows us to spread a little bit further. And then when we've got distributors all around the world, that there are people in Australia who want to get hold of some of this rye that we're talking about, because they understand that it is, the stuff that they won't get over there, and it's really interesting to them. So if a couple of cases go there, a couple of cases here, it soon runs out.
Yeah. Chilton, I have a question for you. How important is an independent bottler for a mainstream distillery, or is it not important at all?
No, it is. It is very important, because first of all, because of the brand awareness that we get working with independent retailers, independent bottlers. Sorry, that's because of that is what I was going to ask Dave as well on the same thing. Dave, how many countries do you know? How many countries you guys distribute right now with the boutique?
How many? I don't know. I remember going to a meeting with South African distillers distill the Distill Group for 3 ships, and we just bottled some 3 ships, and I wanted some more South African single malt. I was over in South Africa and I set up a meeting because I wanted some of their grain, because their grain is superb. And at that time, we had that South African single malt in like 13 different world markets. And he was, what, how many? Yeah. I took it to Vegas. I had your South African whiskey in Vegas. It's in China. It's in Australia. It's all across Europe. It's in Ireland. And no one had heard of South African whiskey in the US, and when we were in Vegas, and they absolutely loved the 3 ships that we had over there. So yeah, I think it's opening up that whiskey market to new people, who'd never heard of. They make Scotch in India, that's that sort of thing. They make Scotch in Japan now. There was that sort of sentiment around there, that only whiskey was Scotch. And I guess we all had it. I didn't know anything about American whiskey not so long ago. Not really. And you have all those preconceptions that people have told you over the years as you've been growing up. Bourbon's okay, but it's not Scotch. Yeah. Well, it's got a history almost as long as Scotch. So
it helps us a lot. As Dave mentioned as well, with the boutique whiskey, even the Paul John that they have has won some awards as well already. So, but with the reach, it gets the code range. It gets the interest in the code range for the consumers. Gunther, anybody who's trying boutique whiskey Paul John will say, "Oh well, I never heard of Paul John," and I should say thanks to Dave because he's getting my job done, and then he should back to me and saying, "Oh, can I try the range as well?" So yes, they are very important for us at least. Yeah.
And Dave, because the boutique is getting a big name, but for example, Bert, you're a small independent bottler. It's not as easy for you to buy a cask. What's the difference between being a small independent bottler and for Dave being a big one? With smaller.
Yeah, it's hard to tell, of course. What is the difference? We have not been there, but from the start of Liquid Art, we always had the idea, let's do 5 to 6 releases per year. That's really not much. Let's go for this really small batches, indeed, for very interesting and good whiskies that our fans will love. And aim at some of the collectors. So we have quite some people following Liquid Art, but we want to go broader, of course. And for us, it's important what's in the glass. That the whiskey is superb, and that people will enjoy it when opening. And of course, we would love to be able to bottle as much as possible distilleries which we love ourselves. That will in the end be the aim. It will be hard work. It's relationship building, that is what we are working on at this point in time.
Yeah, but you have one thing in common: it's the artwork. Because I have here with me the latest bottle of Liquid Art. I really love it.
Yes. I have seen some of these on social media. Yeah.
So it comes in 2 colors. Yeah.
Is that a Croft and Gear?
Yep.
Yes, and it's. I challenge people, and I can't say it about our own bottling, of course, but I challenge to find a Croft and Gear which is as good as this one.
Maybe I have one down here.
It's the peat smoke, warm, but also fruit, which is really mixed into it. Even some tropical fruits, and it's really nice at this even young age. It's stunning what these guys are doing at Loch Lomond.
Yeah. You see, when you're looking for a brand ambassador for Belgium, Bert is here.
Yeah, Croft and Gear. You don't see a lot of it around at all. We have bottled, I think, with 1 or 2 batches of it. Yes, and you're right. It's that very, very fruity, but that heavily peat as well. It's quite heavy peat, and the ppm in the malt is very, very heavy, but because of the plates and the level that they take it off, it becomes a lot fruitier.
Yeah.
We have a question from Robert for Dave. Do you think the industry has become less supportive of independence over the last decade?
I think it's actually got a little bit better. I think in the early 2000s, it was everyone shut the doors. The late 1990s, early 2000s, because there was a lot of suspect independent bottlers. So the people that were buying, whiskey was cheap, and people were bottling it and cashing it in, and it wasn't particularly great. And certainly when we started, it was a lot harder for us to find, those parcels of whiskey, and expensive. That's why we started off small. But we've got relationships. Although we've been around 8 years, I mean, the people within the industry have been around a lot longer. The people who I'm working with have been in the industry a lot longer. So got a lot of good connections, a lot of respect in the industry. And so that helps us with finding great whiskies. And certainly because we can cast our net really wide, and we're passionate about great whiskey, we're not afraid to go and look at Switzerland or Germany or places where you don't expect whiskey to be made. There are some great whiskies being made, and what I like about it is that these countries are deciding that actually we don't need to make whiskey the same as Scotch. Or Scotch do that well. Let's leave that. Let's really stamp. Langerton, for example, in Switzerland, they didn't want to copy Scotch at all, but they wanted a style. They wanted to create. They wanted this birch smoked barley. They just wanted to use great wine cask, great sherry cask, and spend that money on the wood and create something. They're not looking to take over the world, which Scotch did, thankfully. And we're all glad about that it took over the world, but it's also given that inspiration to distillers around the globe to say, well, let's see if we can do something here.
Mm-hmm.
So for our friends in Belgium, can we expect that boutique whiskey company selection from a Belgian whiskey distiller?
Absolutely. I would love to have some Belgian whiskies. Are you making some? I mean, I had the Belgian whiskey that I had in the past, early stuff. It wasn't particularly good.
Okay. Maybe the Belgian old distillery is quite known, making some very fine whiskies.
Yeah, I remember doing a tasting before I joined Boutique, and we were doing a world whiskies tasting in a little spirit shop, and I can't remember that I will be able to gold lease. It was a single cask. Yeah. Oh my! I mean, the cask was just spent. I mean, it really was. It was just, and I looked at it and tasted it and I said, thankfully, there was only 100 and something bottles of this because it was a single cask, and we just drank one of them, so that's good.
There was one particular gold lease. If I don't think you can still find it, but it was a gold lease matured on Limousin casks, and that is really fantastic gold lease, stunning whiskey. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sure this was a long time ago, and I'm sure that if you talk to someone who knows an awful lot about world whiskies, Dominic Roscoe, he has spent a lot of time in Europe visiting all these new distilleries and actually tasting some, because he runs the World Whiskies Award, and all this stuff gets sent into him and said, look guys, you need to go back and work on this because this is really not good. Anyone can make whiskey, but you've got to get it, you've got to get the basics right to begin with. And Scotland's had a long time to put it right, to create that profile. I don't expect it was right 200 years ago, but it's been honed over the time, and that's what these European distilleries need to do really quickly, for a global market. But yeah, I'd love to get over to Belgium, visit some distilleries, taste some samples, and thinking, actually, yeah, I'd love to have a boutique label. Absolutely. That's what happened with our Armoric, our French whiskey. I was at a show in Denmark and saw Armoric across the tables there, and I thought, I always used to go and see David at the London shows. And so I need to taste this again and see how it's going, because it was good, and has it got any better? Yes, it has. It got a lot better. And that's why I wanted some French whiskey in our portfolio. So I was so happy that we managed to talk David into letting us have some casks, because they are superb.
Yeah, and you were looking for a good Indian whiskey and you didn't find one, and so you started out with Paul John.
Hey, I don't know how the relationship with Paul John started, but the relationship has, I mean, with this, we've had 3 batches now. I think they've all been 5 or 6 year olds, which is old, because as you see, all the angels there are drinking it.
No, but
so there's very little left in the cask when we get it. But I mean, it's just superb, isn't it? I mean, I think their bourbon cask, their unpeated bourbon cask, is just absolutely exquisite. You know, there's a single cask out there called 1906. If you find one, get one. There can't be many left, because Shilton and I have drunk most of it, I'm sure.
I've got one left out here. We're just having a check on it. Well, it's still there. No, but I've got a question for you, Gunther. I mean, coming from a brand and the independent bottler, having the both on the shelf, what is your consumer's approach to it? You could have a Paul John in the boutique, or a Paul John single cask, or from the range.
That's, I think, a difficult question, because as you know, our shop is known for being different.
Yeah.
Least I can say. We are a small shop, and we are always looking for that something special. So the boutique Y is one of the things. And I said before we started in the broadcast, I wasn't known that much by that boutique, because I was afraid of the 50 centiliter bottles. But when the Dimitri told me, you have to really try this one because you're gonna love it, I ordered a lot of them. And last week, he said, I take them all. So he was quite impressed himself. So at that point, it's different. It's catchy because of the labels, and the taste is great. Up till now, everything I tasted, because maybe tomorrow or some other day I will find a whiskey that I don't like, but it's my opinion. And then the other part is like the smaller big sellers, like Paul John, for example, because being an Indian whiskey distillery, it's not that known in the European market. You're starting to get bigger, but it's still different, if you know what I mean. Because Macallan, for example, it's easy to sell. You just have to put it over there, and everybody knows, oh, it's a Macallan. And I always like it when you have to say something about it, and when you can say, you have to really try this. 90% of our bottles is open, so I always want to people to try them and make their own opinion. It doesn't matter what I think. It doesn't matter what you guys think of the whiskey, because obviously I presume you always like your own whiskey, or saying you like your own whiskey.
There are whiskies that, absolutely. There are whiskies that there's certainly some distilleries that I'm not big fans of, but I know people do.
Yeah.
And you know, we've got some releases that I've not been big fans of, and I've said that I've not been big fans of. There's some of the Brookladdies that we bottled, I've not been big fans of, because I just get this something about some of the Brookladdies, certainly in the wine casks. Yet other people absolutely love it and flock to it. And, you know, I'm surprised that it just sells out in front of my eyes and think, oh, okay. You know, because people do. Everyone's different. That's the beauty of whiskey. But I know that the quality is superb. It's just not to my palate. You know, I'm not a big sherried, big sherry influenced whiskies. It's got to be really well balanced for me. I mean, the balance has got to be absolutely perfect. And if it's slightly out of balance, I'm not that keen on it, you know, if it's been forced. But, you know, but there are ones that I absolutely adore. And I think we've got that just right, or the distillery's got that just right. It's just perfect.
Yeah. Dave, and actually it's a question for Bert as well. When you have the chance to bottle a special cask, for example, Ardbeg, and you wouldn't like the taste of it, and you know it's gonna be a big seller just because it's Ardbeg, for example, would you buy it?
No. If the flavor profile is if the cask is not good, no, we don't.
Okay.
Not everything goes into a boutique label. Absolutely not.
Okay.
No.
Yeah, that's a very easy question to answer. For us, it would be the same. We really need to like it. So, as mentioned, we do 5 to 6 releases per year. I have my daily job, so I do it as a passion, as a hobby, and it needs to be spot on. We need to like it. So I think on average, we taste around 100 samples before we bottle a whiskey. Yeah. So yeah, we have the bar high. Yeah.
No one would forgive you if you bottled a dud, because you're only as good as your last release. As an independent bottler, they'll only remember the bad one.
Yeah.
No one will remember all the good stuff though. No.
Yeah.
But
And
again,
the Ardbegs that we have bottled have been superb, and thankfully, because quite a lot of people who buy even the expensive Ardbegs open it and drink it.
Yeah, but more and more people are buying bottles just because it's that brand, and they don't open it, and afterwards they sell it for the big money.
That's why we put these graphic novel style labels on them, to make them less collectible.
Does it work?
I don't know. I think we've become a bit of a cult as well, but they do look good. They do look good all together in a big long line. But most of the people I know do collect them and drink them. They open them and drink them.
Yeah.
And they're sad when they're gone, but they know there's something coming in. There's a replacement coming. Not the same.
I saw a few years ago at Katawiki, there was, I think, a lot of 289 bottles of that boutique whiskey company on the shelf. One collection. I did not make it. My offer did not make it, but that would have been great. 289 bottles of that boutique on a row. It's
wow. Amazing. Yeah, there have been people who have collected. I've met a few of them. That they're after one batch of everything, and as soon as we started doing specials, so doing special releases for a bar or a shop or a distributor in a different country, all of a sudden their collection, they can't complete it because they can't go and get that Japanese exclusive or that Chinese exclusive or that, and that did ruin it for a few people, which I'm very sorry about. But we were growing. You've got to do it. If a company comes in and says we'd like to buy half a cask of that Ardbeg and we want it bottled at that ABV and we want a different label, you want to do it if they're a big customer of yours. Yeah.
I think for
Gunther, I don't know how long your show will take, but I have one question also for Dave, but also for Shilton, which I see as a trend. I see a lot of times that more and more secret distilleries start popping up. Secret Speyside, Secret Highland, Secret Isla. How do you look at that trend? And do you think independent bottlers can play a role in maybe getting a little bit counterpart on this? Yeah.
We have a number of secret distillery labels where we're not allowed to name the distillery. Simple as that. That's the rule when we deal with certain companies. They will sell us the whiskey, but you're not allowed to name it directly. Sometimes we can hint, so we can put clues on the label so you can guess what it is, you can tell what it is. We don't put it in writing ever. I can tell you like this in a show and say, don't tell anyone. If you're not working for this company, it's one of them. And I'll tell you, that's not a problem. But we won't ever put it on the bottle. We won't put it on a website or anything like that. That's stipulated. We have also bottled whiskey that we have no idea where it came from. All we're told is it's a Speyside single malt and it's 25 years old, for example. And we bought that because the whiskey is so good, and the price is for a 25-year-old single malt from Speyside is delicious. It doesn't matter. We don't care. We don't need to know what the distillery was because it's good. And we can all guess. There's 40-something distilleries to guess from that were around making whiskey at that time. So everyone can have a different opinion, and it's a bit of fun, isn't it? But no one will know. No one will be wrong because nobody knows apart from the original seller and the broker. So the people who own that cask in the distillery, not the distillery, this was a private individually who had invested a long time ago. But the distillery said, you can't name it. And so he wasn't able to sell it with a named distillery.
Yeah. And do you see this as an issue, or do you see more coming?
I think as depending on your relationships with distilleries. So if you buy Scotch whiskey from the market, nearly all distilleries feed brokers or bonders because that's how Scotch whiskey grew up. It's unique. Scotch whiskey is unique because it's built on the back of blended Scotch whiskey, the boom time from the end of the 1890s and going forward. So there is this. We've got secret rums as well, absolutely. And that's been specified by the owners of the distillery or the cask. Yes, I think, we've definitely seen a little bit of a rise in that because we're able to buy from the distilleries direct. So if we're buying it on the open market and that cask says Glenlivet on it, then we can bottle it as a Glenlivet. But if we buy it from the Glenlivet distillery and the owner says, we don't want Glenlivet on that anywhere, you're going to have to do a different label, then we'll have to do that. That's the rule. And then we won't tell anybody what it is because that will stop our supply.
Yeah. Chilton, you want to say something?
No, that's what, exactly what Dave was mentioning about distillery. I think it's more important will be about the liquid. About the quality of the liquid that you bottle. I mean, and it goes back to if you don't like it, then you're not bottling it at all. And as a consumer as well, he will be more interested in how good that liquid is, rather than knowing from where it is coming. I mean, if you look at the style of the whiskeys, you can get the same, like for example, looking at a peated whiskey, you pick up a whiskey from somewhere else as well, which will get that Islay style of Islay character into it. And you can still get confused, it is coming from Islay. But actually not. It's coming from somewhere else in some other parts of the world. But it's more important what is more important is the liquid that has been bottled, and that goes back to what you select, to the cask you pick up to bottle. So and plus, as Dave said, if there are certain things, I mean, we can sell you the whiskey, but you are not allowed to mention on the label. If you do, if you break that rule, then there you go. There's no more supply for you. That was the last cask we sold.
Yeah. We don't want to do that, do we? No.
Okay. Guys, we're at the end of the show. So thank you very much for joining us today. Chilton, as a special guest, you mentioned before you had something to say. You have a new thing for coming out for the Belgium and then the Dutch market.
Yeah, it is already out in Belgium and Netherlands. We just come out with the Christmas edition 2020. I have the 2018 with me, but the 2020 is the red one, which is out, which has already reached in Belgium and Netherlands. This time we are
not yet still in Belgium.
No, it has already been shipped, so we have to check with the guys, our good friends, and find out what. This time we have used. First time we have used a virgin oak. We have used a virgin oak and Oloroso. Robert just saw the picture I put up yesterday, and that's how it is.
Yeah.
There are a few people in the industry who do not like my haircut. One of them is Gunther, just because they're jealous. Dave.
Yeah, it's true that.
There is Gunther, there is Paul the MC. These guys don't like my haircut just because they're jealous. That's all.
No, you don't want to join the bald club.
So the Christmas edition is in, but yeah, that's coming out. The first time we have used a virgin oak, so very different liquid compared to the last two Christmas editions. That is new, and yeah, that's pretty much. Okay. Thank you for having me, guys. Thank you for having me. At this time last year, or the year before, last year, I was with Gunther, picking up and lifting a big, huge, heavy pumpkin somewhere on the road in Kinry.
Yeah.
Stealing a pumpkin, actually.
This time last year, wasn't it? Whiskey Base? Was it Whiskey Base around this
Whiskey
time?
Base, Whiskey Base, yeah.
Yeah. Just coming back from Whiskey Base at the weekend, wasn't it? Yeah. I think I had some reminders. Yeah.
Better times.
Yeah, good times. Yeah.
Chilton, thank you very much for joining us, and I will see you in the back within a few minutes. So you don't have to leave. See you soon. Bert, thank you very much for joining us and being my co-host today.
Thank you very much, Gunther. Also, thank you, Dave, for having us. It was really a nice show. And looking forward to hearing more from you guys, to have more that boutique whiskey company bottlings in Belgium. That would be great.
Yeah, lovely to meet you too. And hope to meet you in the flesh soon.
We can arrange that.
In real life. It would be good to get over.
We'll talk soon in the back. So bye. So Dave, at last, we are the two of us. Annoying and annoying are gone. They can't say anything at this point. So no, we always end the show saying some things people have to do. No, so first of all, wrong button. This one. Next week we talk with Mariella from Aran Distillery. So everybody wants to join us. She looks better than the guys today. So only for that, you have to join us. And we always end the show with our guests saying the last thing. So I will go to the back as well, and you can say whatever you want to everybody you want. And thank you very much for joining us, for doing this, and best of luck with your bottles, because like I said before, they taste great and they look great. So I'm a fan from now on. So Dave, thank you very much, and it's all up to you now.
Thank you very much for having me. And if there's anyone still listening, thank you very much for listening to me this evening. It's been lovely being here, although I wish I could be in real person, because I certainly miss people. Someone who lives on the road and talks whiskey every day to people all around the globe. Yeah, I miss people. So everybody, stay safe. Look after yourselves and look after your loved ones. And hopefully I'll see you all at a whiskey show soon. Cheers.